Hey, what's going on everyone? This is JoeYoursTruly back with another video. Today we're actually going to be doing the tier list video for version 1.8. I know I missed the last one for when Rainer was originally introduced, and part of the reasons was because I was doing my whole move to Alaska. I wasn't really playing the game a whole lot, so I didn't really have a clear understanding or like experiences of like the meta at that time. However, since I've been back, I've been going back to streaming. I've been doing a lot of like ranked games actually, and just like quietly suffering because my internal MMR has not been reset, but my display rank is bronze. So it just means that even though I'm only bronze 1, I've actually been playing very regularly against like some of the top players in rank at the moment. So I quickly caught on to some of the different builds or different heroes are being kind of abused a lot to kind of net these like high ranking players more wins as they try to climb back up to Paragon. But I'm gonna try to do something a little bit different on this video. First off, I kind of changed some of like the tier brackets. I'm gonna explain that in a little bit. But also, I want to be a bit more concise on the tier list videos because I kind of realized that people don't always want to necessarily sit through like an hour-long tier list video, even though I give a lot of details and input. I think I'm gonna try to keep it more condensed this time around and to hopefully make it more digestible for you guys. But to quickly go over like the changes I made to like this brackets over here, this is gonna be a tier list video that it's gonna be focused more on rank this time around. I usually like to do tier list videos that are focused more on like general usage, so not just rank but outside of rank. But since it's like the start of the new season of rank, a lot of stuff has changed with like the map changes, the new buffs. The meta is just completely like almost different, in my opinion. So I kind of want to make a tier list video that's more focused on rank. I've been doing a lot more rank games, so I can kind of confidently give you guys a good general grasp on this whole like rank thing. And by the way, it's just my opinion at the end of the day. I can't make a tier list video that's gonna always be satisfactory to everyone because it just really depends on your perspective, where you're at, what heroes you like, dislike. But I try my best to be as unbiased as I can. I have talked to a lot of different like streamers and like comp players, what they think, get their input to kind of work my way and to try and make a tier list that should be sort of like relative to most people out there. So for this tier list, I'm gonna actually have an SS rank this time around, because I really want to emphasize like the most pick heroes and the most banned heroes every game that I've been playing and that I see other streamers do in their games as well. So it's gonna be like a whole like bracket dedicated to that. S is gonna be like the picks that you always want to kind of consider picking up on, just to help you climb easier. A is kind of like where it gets to the point where like these are heroes that are good, you don't always have to pick them, but they're all not bad to go most of the time. Once you get down to like the B and C, that's where it kind of goes to more like average performance. So like, yeah, they can do the job, but you should probably consider picking up these heroes above them. C is like really situational, so like more like counter heroes, depending on the team comps you're facing. And I really want to emphasize, if you see one of your heroes in this blue bracket S to C, that it does not mean they are worse than these heroes above. This is just a bracket I made for most heroes that are specifically good for one trick kind of players, so kind of like heroes that are really good, but you have to play them a ton. And unless you do that, or unless you're like a god gamer that can play anything, you gotta like, this is like the one of the heroes that can fluctuate a lot depending on the people that play them. So again, if you see a hero in S to C, it does not mean they are worse than like the C heroes. It just means that these are the most highly skilled heroes that can really fluctuate depending on the player. And so if you comment down below that I'm wrong for putting some hero in S to C, you are clearly not listening or reading my tier list video. I'm saying that because so there's someone that always says that, and I'm like, have to tell them, hey, go watch my video and then come back to me on that. And finally, F, rest in peace. This is like the bracket where it's like, I can't see a reason why you want to play this hero when they kind of get outclassed in almost every way, shape, and form. And luckily, there's only one hero that's like that, and I'll explain that once we get to that hero. But jumping straight into it, I'm gonna just quickly talk about like what the meta is at, and I know some people will kind of disagree on me, but it's very apparent to me that right now the meta is very heavy on like the roaming aspect, and more specifically, the meta is playing around the side buffs because you guys have not like noticed or caught on already. These like new buffs, the ceiling, bugs that you can kill on the river, and the shaper buff that you can kill to give you team global XP and gold are the big focal points of where the meta is at right now in Predecessor, because it kind of plays into the problem of Predecessor's map, and that is it is very small. It's honestly like in terms of like how long it takes you to traverse the map, it's not like that much different than like a League of Legends or Smite map. Like it's a little bit shorter than those two. However, what makes the map feel very small is how jam-packed all these buffs are at. Because like Smite, for example, will have multiple buffs like you can go for, but they're more spread out across the map. So it becomes a point where you got team wipe, and now you got to decide which buffs you're gonna try and do, because you can't do all of them because it's gonna take you too long, and by the time you try to like do the second one, enemy teams can contest you on that. Right now in Play, it's not like that at all, because the shaper buff, the big boy buff that you want to consistently do because it gives your whole entire team like a bunch of gold and XP, is literally right next to old Prime and Prime of Faintus. And so what happens is you get a situation where you get a team wipe, and the winning team, if they're healthy enough, they can do both the shaper buff and the Prime of Faintus or the old Prime buff. And that is a big issue, because it kind of enables this most very heavy snowball roaming meta to appear, where usually you get punished when you do less of farming your lane minions and more, and you try to do roam a lot, because even if you get kills or get objectives, you will just be put behind against your other opponent that stay in lane and took your tower and all that. However, since now there's all these like buffs that you can just fight over on the river, and especially the one that gives you whole team global gold and XP, you roaming and losing farm is offset by taking out these new buffs on the river. And then when you take out these new buffs on the river, you can 99% of the time just then go take the mini prime or Faintus right afterwards. And so what this enables is this very like heavy sit and mid kind of like strategy. Well, you're gonna see especially a lot of like good support players, they'll just go sit in mid lane at 5 minutes, kind of like around the time that ceiling buffs spawn in, to help the jungler take it, or just go kill the mid laner, and then with the mid laner they just do the ceiling buff. You're gonna see like a lot of aggressive play just constantly happening on the river as a result, right as soon as those ceiling buffs happen. And the thing is, they don't get punished for that, because you are giving more and more golden XP by securing all the stuff on the river, plus the Faintus and O Prime. And it's also to the point where even like offlaners are doing that too, which is like really stupid, because offlane is supposed to be that role where you really have to focus a lot on the split push 1v1 and knowing when to rotate. But now just mindlessly just rotate 5 mid, get the ceiling buff, get the Faintus, and then go back to lane, and you'll still even on gold and XP with your opponent. And so for me, it's like a very unfun meta, because it's turning this game more and more into a brawly kind of game, where you see people just constantly group up, aim ramming it, and whoever wins the fights get all the new buffs plus the Faintus mini prime, and just like helps them like snowball out of control like really fast. So I think that was kind of like a oversight by Meta Studios. That it was a cool idea. I like the map changes. I like the stuff they were doing with these like new buffs, but it just does not work super well on our already small map, because now just you have all these buffs, like big important like buffs and objectives to go for, all right next to each other, and whoever wins just wins even more. So if you're not just roaming from 5 minutes, you are just like actually making it that much harder to win the game. And so as a result, this tier list is going to reflect that. You're going to see heroes that are going to be highly more rated because they have better early games, or they're very good at just team fighting and brawling out on these objectives. So first up, we're going to talk about the newest hero, Akeron. This is going to be a little bit more hot take for me, but I think, in my opinion, he's an A pick. and I know he's getting banned a lot in rank, but I think he's a bit overrated, and because this is probably due to the fact that I think Akeron's like the first hero we have where he's actually like a good well-made kit, because the problem I have with Reina and Yuri is those two heroes that are fun to play, but they have super overloaded kits, so they're really hard to counter and really hard to balance as a result. And still to this day, those two are the most pick and ban hero every single game. So that's akin towards them. I'm gonna go to SSC in a sec. But for Akeron, it's very easy to counter him because he's very big, and his best ability, his ultimate, is easily shut down by CC. So there are ways you can like counter him pretty easily, compared to like these other heroes above him. And honestly, I think he's closer to an S. He's like a really good like frontliner if you build him like full tank, and he's like I can actually do still respectable amount of damage. The reason why I'm putting him at A is because I notice a lot of people are still getting the hang of him. A lot of people play him and they don't quite understand why he's really strong when not building the most optimized items. Like for example, his jungle build recommends to build physical items on him, but that's actually really bad on him. You actually just want to go full tank or go full magical booster and on him in off lane. So until people kind of figure that out, he's sort of kind of like not like the greatest pick. You don't want to get baited into picking him, essentially, is what I'm trying to say, if you actually don't know what you're doing. But once people figure that out, once the hype kind of dies down on this hero, I think he's going to move up to S. I think right now, half the time I see people pick him and they just kind of feed because they're not building the right items and they're not playing him right. So for right now, I think in the meta he's A, but that can easily change to an S at the very least in about like 2 weeks from now. I'm gonna quickly go over what I think are like actually the must pick or ban heroes, like just kind of fill the entire world, because these are like the most focal points. I'm going back to my whole talk about the meta with like the map changes and stuff. First off, we are gonna talk about the Reina, and I absolutely despise this hero. She's like the perfect example of a kit that someone made and they're like, oh yeah, we're cooking. This hero is so fun to play, and yeah, it's really fun to play, but it's very unfun to play against because it's just this very little counterplay to what she does. Like, she's literally just a walking Gideon ultimate that can stasis, and her ultimate still is activated. She has the shield of the on-B with the one argument that she goes. She has a lot of healing, a lot of damage, and she has a free scaling passive, which and then also, like, oh yeah, not to mention, she also have an execute mechanic on the basic ability. Like, she is the most overbloated mage of all time. It is actually wild what they decided to go with her. And I know like they were trying to cook with a close range mage, and I saw they took some inspiration from other heroes like Hades. But the difference with like Hades and Smite is that when he always is very stationary, there are clear counter ways to counter him. But for Reina, it's just like she's moving really fast, doing a lot of damage with her AoE ultimate. She goes up there, she memorizes you. It is just so dang hard to like actually properly like count this hero. It's just so dang annoying, and I still can't believe they haven't even touched her numbers of scaling that much at all, because she's very clearly the most banned hero every single game. I never see this hero ever make it through in my games, and every time I see other people stream, this hero always gets banned. Like, it's just so disgusting. I don't know what the heck Studios is thinking. And another hero is Yuri. I think she's definitely in the same category, like a very uploaded kit, like range basic attacks, healing, an assassin, endless mobility and long she keep playing on the mark, and of course she's an assassin, really good isolated targets, but also one of the most disgusting ultimates in the game. Right now though, she has finally started to kind of get tapered down a bit, so she's not as impressive as she used to be, but she is still like a very top tier assassin being picked like every single game if she's not banned. So like these are like the two most banned targets you're gonna be pretty much seeing in all your games for the most part. But there are some other ones that are getting banned actually. One thing that I was actually surprised on at first was Grux. And I thought at first it's just because he's like a noob trap, but no, he's like actually really good in offlane. And guess what? He's actually very good in these team fights around the noob buffs and constantly brawling out. Like all the CC he provides, he's very good at shutting down key targets. And then you go to build that it's like brutally increases healing, really hard to kill. So if you're always constantly aiming it and you want a frontliner that can do a lot of damage and soak up damage for your team, Grux is actually one of the top 2 picks for that. So he's like one reason why he's someone that's like highly contested, like banned sometimes, but definitely pick up all the time and off lanes and sometimes jungle. Another hero that might surprise some of you is Morn. He's not necessarily a hero that's like banned, but he's definitely a hero that's getting picked all the time. For the most part, just a very good all-around kid with the blindness ultimate, very good in team fighting, and especially since everyone's so clumped up on the river, he can get huge value out of memorize. His ultimate makes it just that much harder for people to fight on the river as well. He just has everything you want on like the support kit. Very good at Brawly, AWIMing action for the most part. So for the next one, Fei Mao is actually surprisingly very good. He's actually doing a ton of damage, and he's actually hard to kill sometimes because his best build involves like building army fam like Mutilator and then like even Judgment. So you wouldn't think he would heal a lot with that, but if you build Ferocity and those Army Fam items, he can actually heal a ton in this like combos. So he's actually an assassin that's deceptively hard to kill as a result, just being able to heal a lot, but also be hard to lock down all the way because of his mobility, very good execute, of course very good at snowballing, just like looking for the execution of those fights. It's actually funny that they specifically nerf augmentation to only scale and base power, because I guess Fei Mao is abusing augmentation a lot. So they're trying to remove that interaction with assassins, and so what happened is augmentation is useless on bruisers, but Fei Mao is like, okay, I don't need that item anyways. It still is a freaking like top pick mana, so just kind of like another miss in my opinion by mid-series, where they nerf augmentation to the ground to nerf assassins abusing the item, but then assassins are still assassinating, and then bruisers are now just suffering as a result for no reason. Next up, Twin Blast. I think he's like one of the most consistent pick ADCs at the moment. He's definitely not banned. I would say the 2 most banned targets are the Reyna, Yuri, and Fei Mao. And then you see like the fourth pick like being like tossed around between Akeron and Grux, for example. But TB is just a one ADC that's like one of the most picked ADCs. Just because he's just an all-arounder. He's very good with crit on hit if you want to build him that, but I see a lot of people building him with the Infernum, like Perforator, makes him like a very safe ADC that has crazy high damage from mid to long range. He's pretty good into most like matchups as an ADC because he can choose not to interact with them and poke them out with longer range abilities. Very good wave clear, very good 1v1s, very good team fights. He just kind of like does it all. So there are some other ADCs probably below him that does some stuff better than he does, but in my opinion, even though he got slightly nerfed, he still feels amazing to play, and he's definitely like always a super safe ADC that you can just pretty much go every single game. So if you're an ADC main, you definitely want to pick up Twin Blast as your like to go pick for the most part. Okay, so one last mention, and it's going to be the Mortgage, and I might get some pushback on this. The reason why I think Mortgage is a must pick of ban here is because she has a super toxic kit. She's kind of like that Reyna in a sense. Well, she's a mage that does a lot of damage and heals a lot, and just a very good early game, very good mid game, very good late game. But another reason why it pushes her to SS, in my opinion, is because from last season, Mortgage was the highest win rate offlane hero across all ranks. It just boggles my mind because I have noticed this for like the last like almost 2 months that Mortgage offlane is like actually super toxic and really hard to shut down. That's like the reason why I'm putting that as she's a hero that is like really hard to counter because she does everything so well. Like especially if we put in the offlane, she has like some of the best healing, some of the best 1v1s, early game damage. She has damage mitigation on her E. All her stuff is locked on, so her damage is just always gonna stick on you. And there's one build you go specifically that just pushes that even to a greater level. So for the people that know about this, they are definitely abusing her a ton, and it just shows right here. Well, she's like top 10 most played offlaner, with like 200 games for that one patch alone in that 3 weeks, and she's like highest win rate because you see all these other really strong heroes like the Quan, Zevlog was a menace, Brooks is always Brooksing, right? But Mortgage still has like the highest win rate all around. And people will be like, oh, Joey, she's range offlane. She's just a noob stopper, right? And yeah, she's definitely a noob stopper, but she's also the hero that's actually hard to shut down by good players. Because if you just take a look at like how her win rate progresses, like bronze, of course, like 57% win rate, then silver goes up to 55, gold, still 57 in gold, plat. This is where we start to go against like decent players for the most part. Still 56% win rate. Okay, surely Diamond drops off, right? Nope, still 55.5% win rate. Okay, what about Paragon? Where she's at? Okay, 48% win rate. Finally, she's not a positive win rate. But then you look at other heroes like the Sevlog, the Shinbi, the Ceres, the Quan, the Crunch. Like all these heroes are like considered some of the top offlaners, and yet even them, they have like negative win rates. Right? So the fact that Mortgage is still a respectable 48% win rate against Paragon level players, it's very telling of just how strong this hero is, and it's just how hard it is to shut her off. And I do have a video lined up for that because I purposely avoid doing the video on Mortgage offlane because she is just so toxic. I do not want more people to play this, but it's very clear that if you can even go through the stats, you can look at version 1.8, and she's still like a really high positive win rate. But it's very clear in terms of like stats that she is doing very, very good, like highest win rate, consistent offlaner. Yet Omisius does not want to for whatever reason, and I'm really sick and tired of them not doing that. So I'm putting out a video pretty soon on it to hopefully spread a little bit more awareness and just show you guys the full extent of how abusable she can be in offlane. And maybe, yeah, more people will play her. But at least I get that video out there. More people are made aware of it, and hopefully Meta Studios can like finally wake up and actually nerf her or make it so that she's just not as like a cheese hero that can just like be a menace in offlane. Because I will definitely crash out if they do not nerf her and offlane specifically in the next months. I will actually just be extremely pissed off because like Almeda's balance team has always been like really good until like this last few months where they're just dropping the ball left and right, and then I feel like Mortgage is like the biggest ball they have dropped where they're just ignoring this problem that's very apparent. And I even talked to some streamers and showed them the stats, and they think that was crazy that they saw that too, and they're like, holy crap, what the heck is Mortgage doing? Like I have talked to other streamers about this, and they all agree with me about this issue with Mortgage offlane. So hopefully we see some like actual nuts with her pretty soon. But that's enough win for me. That's all the SSPO picks, and now we can go through the rest of the picks right here. So for August, he's a never ever bad pick. He's a very good mid lane, good flex and support as well. So definitely if you like him a lot, you can play him and dominate with him. But he does struggle in some matchups that you can I guess at the majors like you're gonna see over here, and that's the reason why he's sort of kind of hating on A instead. Well, it has kind of like fallen off. Like I look at some of the stats, I look at like kind of like where she fits in the meta, and she's actually not as good as I thought she would be. And I think it's probably due to the fact that right now it's kind of like a very heavy burst damage meta, and Aurora doesn't exactly have the highest burst damage. Like you can try building burst damage, but she doesn't quite fit that as well as you would think she would. So most of the time she's sort of a kind of like pseudo frontliner. But right now we have a lot of other better frontliners like a Rampage for example, or even Akeron at times can better frontline than her, which sounds kind of crazy, but I think she just kind of has fallen off a little bit. I think that a lot of value comes from her split pushing, and right now in the meta which she doesn't, we're not as awarded as much for split pushing or whatever we want, or why is the fact that there's a lot of high competition off lane, and usually the ones that do better are the ones that have natural sustain their kit, and the world doesn't have that at all. So it's very like you either have to outplay your opponent and get them low enough to win matchups, because otherwise you're just gonna get pulled out of the lane 9 out of 10 times. Boris, I also think he's kind of like a average-ish performance. I tried playing with him. I saw other people play him. I'm not too impressed where he's at the moment. I would think he would be up higher because he's actually very good at doing like solo objectives. So I would think, yeah, he'll be good on the ceiling, trying to abuse that, right? But again, it's kind of like playing into the burst meta a little bit this time around, especially with everyone grouping up and they ramming it. It kind of feels like it's really easy to show him off. Like he's just 1 CC and he's dead essentially. And his best build was like the augmentation. Using that, but since they gutted that, he can't use that really well anymore. So his build is just not as good as it used to be. So that's kind of like why I'm putting him B. For Countess, she's pretty much like always a good pick. Why she's the perfect example of a good offlaner that has like good sustain, good burst damage. She heals a lot. She has good mobility. She's also a great flex and jungle, and I think people are sleeping on her. So a little bit of my bias may be creeping in here, but I think she's a very good pick if you want to have an easier time in offlane and have that back pocket pick for jungle. For Crunch, I think he's like an average performance. I almost consider putting him like situational pick because he hates CC, but he seems to be doing like quite alright. He's always like surprise pick that people sometimes forget about and then ends up steamrolling the enemy team. He's just a really good jungler, like great mobility, CC. His true damage is definitely very good on this Q. I just think he suffers the same issue as Boas, where CC will just absolutely decimate this guy. So you end up being him like super tanky towards the mid to late game, but then it's kind of like you can play either he was super tanky but do more damage than him. It's kind of like the feeling that I have with Crunch at the moment. For Deca, she's definitely an A pick. She's like a very good roaming support, like, and a lot of high damage. I am seeing her use a lot more mid. She's just doing a lot of damage as a support and a mid flex, and so she's a great fit into this roaming meta, aim roaming meta, where she's locking down people left and right and very good helping down taking the side buffs and just being an absolute menace when she decides to roam and just lock down kills for the her team. Jungle, I think she's a situational pick. Like, I don't think he's like terrible. I just think other ADCs do the ADC job a bit better than him. He's kind of like more utility-ish kind of a vibe to me. Like his silence grenade can be pretty dang good in certain matchups. That's why I think he's like more situational pick. But if you try to pick an ADC for like damage and team fighting, I think Jungle doesn't quite fit that bill as well as some of the other ADCs above him. We have Gadget right here. She's actually like, for the longest time, been like a super unpopular mage, but then I looked at some of the stats and seeing other people play her, she's actually picked a ton. She's like top 3 most picked like mages, something like that, from what I saw. And I think it's for a good reason. I think with how congested the jungle is and now all the fights are happening a lot more in the jungle around like the ceiling and and then the Shaper buffs especially, it feels like you can get super easy value from her Tesla Dome and just plopping the entire kit and everyone just get hit by it. She has good decent matchups in mid lane as well. She has a scaling kit, so she's has a very good like late game as well. So I think she's a very kind of like good mage to like play in mid for the most part. Gideon, he has seen some better days, but it is kind of surprising because he has always been like top mage or like top 3 mage for the longest time, but I kind of feel like ever since they introduced Reyna, she kind of made Gideon obsolete in a sense because she kind of does way more than Gideon and plus some more, and it's just a sad day to be Gideon. It kind of feels like it's hard to see where he excels where other mages don't. And again, I would think that he'll be good at this constant team fights, but no, it's just his damage is just not really there. And with all, you're gonna see a lot more rise of like CC supports being used a lot more, and they're all pretty easy at showing down Gideon ultimate and just bursting them down. So I just kind of feel like, you know, Gideon's just kind of rough to play compared to some of the mages, especially like some of these mages. I'll just tend to just perform better too. So you can find me on this. I'm totally fine with that. I just think Gideon's in a very sad spot right now, and that's why I'm putting him right here. It's just like if I just look at him and Reyna side by side, I'm like, yeah, I actually no reason why I play Gideon. I put Reyna and some other mages like Gadget by side by side. I'm like, yeah, Reyna's still OP, but Gadget does some crazy stuff as well on her end. So that's kind of like where I'm at with Gideon on that front. Greystone, he's never a bad pick. He's a lane bully. He's pretty much like a W key. He's very hard to kill with his ultimate and great mobility. He's surprisingly good on these like team fights, especially where he can just soak up damage and abilities and just keep going after that. I just his kit is like very like basic. He doesn't have like that hard CC that you want. So it's not a bad pick. It just I don't see him being better than the always strong pick. It's just kind of like where I'm at with him. Grim, I think he's like average performance. He's definitely like he has some safe abilities like the shield and then execute, but I kind of feel like his damage just doesn't seem like all that crazy compared to some of these other ADCs. So I kind of feel like other ADCs just tend to do a little bit more better in this meta and outputting that damage, in my opinion. Also, really good mage, always been really good in the 1v1s, and since there's a lot of like roaming going around, he's very good at going for those like ganks and very safe. Too, like people try to shut him down, but he stalls out so long with his ultimate and boop and all that. He's just like very like good single target kind of mage. Sometimes you want the gadget like the AoE over him, but like other than that, he's like doing pretty dang good in the mid lane right now. Iggy, he's never a bad pick, is what I'm feeling at with him. You could maybe argue he's a pick, like always strong, because he can kind of cheese all these like objectives faster. But sometimes it's hard to like get in fights, or rather sometimes you just want to throw your whole kit and then let it do all the damage. But Iggy is like you have to let the enemy team come to you to see fight from him, so sometimes it can be awkward to fight around that. But it's definitely pretty annoying to fight Iggy when he has all his turns placed down and he's playing around that with his team. Clyde, she's the only for one tricks. Like I've seen some really nasty Clyde players. I also seen some really bad Clyde players, and even like the nasty Clyde players, I see just one CC and just immediately dead. So it's definitely like a very high skill ceiling hero, very high risk, high reward. That's why I think she's the perfect example of a only for one tricks. She can easily be up here, right? But she can also easily be at B, right? Depending on who plays her. So I think when you look at Kawaii, you definitely want to be someone that's very, very comfortable and know exactly what you're doing with her. Chimera, I had him at never a bad pick. I think he's like a great. He's kind of like the same. He has some of the same problems as Boas, except it's not nearly as bad due to his like a little bit higher mobility sticking power, and also like he has a CC cleanse. So and then also at times I don't know why it just Chimera just feels like it's hard to kill compared to like the Boas. Like probably because Chimera leads a lot more heavier into like a more tank build, whereas Boas leads more to the damage builds. So it's hard to shut down the Chimera. He's a great diver. I think he's just a really good pick all around, in my opinion. Kira, she's always a strong pick. She's very good single target damage, of course. She suffers a little bit because it kind of like you have to like clear waves fast and roam to like ceiling shaper buffs, and Kira's always struggle with way clear. But than that, she's a pretty scary ADC when she get kills, get some dash resets, and get those executes with her kill. For Quan, he's like a really popular offlaner and a very popular jungler. He's like the perfect example playing into like the burst CC meta. He has both, and as a result, he's like really good to be flexing the offlane, the jungle. He really rounds up a lot of the teams that you want to have if you want to win your games. So right now, he's like a really good consistent pick to keep playing right now. Belica, I've been leaning around S and A. I'm gonna put an A. You can argue she's an S, and I'm okay with that. I just think she's a little bit more A because even though her knockup is really good in those team fights, she still like she kind of plays like a mini ADC because of her like augment and like the prophecy stuff I've seen floating around. But sometimes you want like those juicy AoE like abilities and ultimates to kind of be able to like punish people grouping up a lot. I feel like Belka sometimes struggles trying to punish like teams that have just perma group up, and people are definitely perma group up in these higher elo brackets, but she's definitely never a bad pick. Again, you can say she's S, and I'm okay with that. Modok, he's definitely hanging like a truck. He's an S pick. I think it's just for him, when I compare him and TB, they're both like pretty similar, like good mobility, good 1v1s, good range. But I kind of like the TB pick a bit more because he has more build options and he can play at a farther distance than the Modok. And of course, like the Modok snipe is really good for like sniping people from afar. So like very good at like finishing like someone trying to 1v1, right? But most of the time people are grouped up, so it's kind of hard to feel the impact of his ultimate picking a target from far away and then having that global map presence when everyone just group up anyways. Mario, she's also someone that's like average performance. Like again, support meta seem to be just play more to heavy CC and roaming, and she can help secure kills right with her Q slow and some damage, right? And I would think that she can be pretty good at split pushing and then ulting to people, but right now again, like the whole split push meta is just not as good as it used to be, so that value from her global ult doesn't really feel that great, and she doesn't have that hard CC, so I kind of feel like she has fallen off a bit. She doesn't quite mesh well with this meta. It's kind of like what I'm getting at with her. Bash, it's definitely like one of the more best like enchanter supports because he's pretty much the king of AWAMing it with his team with the movement speed, the heal, AoE heal. He's definitely fire of a menace right now if you want to play perfectly into just the roaming and just like securing kills and then help keeping his whole team alive. Phase is a situational pick. Like again, I think like the whole enchanters like support minus not bad doesn't quite fit well in the CC meta. I kind of feel like the phase safety net doesn't have a huge impact as well like in those 5v5s. Well, it's pretty easy to dogpile on both of them and multiple people running at them. And the lack of hard CC just kind of makes it sometimes awkward to play her. Rampage, he's definitely like one of the best tank junglers. Like you can even argue he's like an SS, and I'm okay with that. Like I just kind of feel like it for jungle specifically, I think it's leaning towards more assassin, just being the snowball, get kills, get objectives. But like Rampage is so dang strong with his like CC walk and then just dive and tanking, so he's definitely super good. He's probably one of the only like super highly top pick jungler tanks. It's just I think the meta for jungle falls more into like assassins for more consistent snowballing and winning your games through that way. Revenant, average performance, like not bad. He can be pretty nasty. Always have a good ultimate to secure objectives by ulting the jungler. But there's a lot. It's kind of interesting because it's hard. Sometimes it can be. He doesn't exactly do as well as you would think against like assassins who can just immediately do the whole combo. He's like dying in like less than 2 seconds. And he's also not like, how do I say it? It's not the greatest into some of the more tanky boys like the Rampage, the new Akeron, right? So he's not bad. I just think that a lot of these other ADCs are just a little bit more consistent than he is at the moment. We have Victor. He's like again like the Deco perfect CC support roaming. Probably one of the best supports to counter the Akeron because he has 3 abilities to show off his ultimate, and Akeron's a very fat boy, so it's easy for Victor to pull him in. So as a result, you see a lot more Victors being played in general to counter Akeron, but also just to counter like the assassins, some of the boozers with the CC lockdown. Ceres, I'm gonna do like both at the same time. I'm gonna do Ceres and Yin because they're both very similar. They're both like carry junglers and they have good clears, so they can kind of do some of these new buffs pretty fast. I just think that since we're playing into a more heavy CC meta and 5v5 fighting, both of these heroes kind of struggle with that. So not particularly like the worst. I just think they're a lot easier to counter compared to some heroes above them. I'm gonna kind of speed run this a little bit more. We have Sedwalk Waze. They're both 2 heroes that I think they're only for 1 tricks. Sedwalk before this patch, I will probably place him outside the 1 trick category, but since right now it feels like off lane half the time you should be roaming to ceiling or the shaper bust rather than like split pushing, it kind of makes it awkward to find the ebb and flow of farming your stacks on Sidewalk and then rotating, because if you only farm your stacks, your team is just perma 4v5ing the enemy team. If you roam a lot but don't farm well, then you're a Saddler Reaper that didn't really get a shoulder pads online. And then for Waze, he's pretty much always been like that ADC mid laner, even support, like that's very high skill ceiling, very high reward, but it's very hard to pull off at times. So he's definitely someone that I think you can easily argue he's like top 2 ADC with Twin Blast. That's kind of like the opinion I got by a lot of like ADC mains and then like comp players. But I just think that outside, I think he's just kind of like is just that one straight keyword. So for these comp players that play the game a ton, it's like no problem with the pilot kit, but for the rest of the player base, it's kind of like a coin flip if the Waste player is actually good or not. So I think he's definitely like a more of a one straight keyword. Again, easily like top 2 ADC with Twin Blast. I just really want to emphasize the fact that he's like more of a one straight keyword. Shinbi is actually doing really good in the off lane. It's pretty surprising because she's always been transitioning more of a split push, but right now it kind of feels like she stack checks people a bit, like the Gworks after a certain point. So she's doing pretty good, pretty safe off laner. So if you like her playstyle, she's definitely gonna treat you very well. Skylar, and then like really top ADC. There's a lot of like ADCs in this bracket. It just kind of feels like there's a lot of like really strong ADCs, and it just falls off a cliff pretty fast after that. So I think Skylar with her beams doing a ton of damage, and the ultimate executes also very good. Just can't go wrong with Skylar, honestly. Sparrow, I am gonna put on A. I know she could be pretty dang crazy with the ultimate, and she's always been like the most picked ADC in the last meta, but I'm starting to see her not pick up as often, and I think it's also due to the fact that we are aiming it a lot more. She's a lot more exposed to like backline dives by like assassins and stuff. So it's not like a situation pick because she's strong enough ADC to stand on her own, but I do think that she can be kind of like a hit or miss ADC and depending on the matchups and stuff. So that's why I'm putting her down to A. She's never a bad pick. She can definitely pop up extremely hard. Just some hero matchups might give her a hard time. My big boy Steel, he's kind of like an A pick. I was considering dropping down the B because his offlane has been kind of like not the greatest for a while. His jungle, not the greatest. He's more like a support kind of pick, but he's very good in support pick with the CC. I just think he's a little bit outclassed by people really good on the Richter or Decker. Terra, situational pick, like very anti-CC hero, but kind of doesn't have that big oomph from damage. And there are some heroes like the Decker that can quickly show off by caging her in, and Deckers pick a lot. So I think Terra is just more of a situational pick. Well, if you can force certain matchups like the Decker and you're going to get the heavy CC team, Terra can get pretty insane value, but outside that, she's not should be a booster you just play just for damage. For Faye, I have A, so I think like the Faye, Howitzer, Gadget, like the kind of top 3 like most popular mages for the most part. Faye's like ultimate is very scary, very good in those team fights especially, but again, if you don't have your ultimate, then she doesn't offer as much compared to these other mages, but still very scary. Wukon's a B pick. I was actually debating on putting him only for 1 tricks. Actually, let's just put him there. I'm putting him here because I feel like he's been nerfed so much to the point that you only really play him if you love the monkey himself. And I think the offlane split push strategy is not as effective as it used to be on him. And jungling with him, he can kind of clear stuff fast, but a lot of other junglers can also clear stuff fast. So I do think the Wukong pick is really, you only want to play him if you love him and you can really fully utilize his kit to the full extent. Saris, he's like, I think I had him on A. I think he's a bit overrated because he plays like an assassin due to how his combos work and caging people in. He's definitely better when there's more isolated fights happening, and it kind of feels like Saris doesn't do that in this meta. I just don't like Saris like jungle because it kind of feels like you either like you either get big value from his ult or you don't, and if you don't get big value from his ult, he just really falls off pretty hard in terms of like value. And in offlane, it's just like he's seen the better days. It's hard to like win lane with him, and his whole kit identity is to win lane, but he doesn't really do that anymore as easily. So I think like he's still a pick. His ultimate can be pretty game changing. It's just he's kind of like the Faye. Like it's just like he just plays well on his ultimate is the biggest thing. If he didn't have his ultimate the way he is, he'd definitely be a lot lower. And then lastly for Sings, average performance, like she has some CC, definitely plays well on the healing V5. I just think that in terms of like CC, like definitely outclassed pretty hard, and then for healing also outclassed by like Nobash because he gives so much healing to his entire team and thinks he can only do it to other people and not to herself. But yeah, that's my entire list, and we got this done in 45 minutes, so definitely faster than when I did Yuri, and that one had 2 less heroes, so I'm definitely getting faster with all of this. Still a longer video. I was hoping to go for 30 minutes, but we can definitely go for that next time. I think it's due to the fact that I have to really kind of explain the background on like the whole meta with like the whole like new meta we have, plus some specific heroes. So I'll definitely look to kind of trim this down more next time, but I think I did a decent job at kind of condensing this down more while giving you guys a lot of insights. But again, you're free to disagree with me. This is just my opinion at the end of the day, but I try my best to be as biased as I can. So if you have any other big arguments you want to make and make your case, definitely do that in the comments below. We're here to have a discussion on the meta and kind of see what other people think. But that's gonna be it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If not already, could subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single beat by yours truly. But other than that, hope you guys have a great rest of your day here. Peace.